Here's a zoom from Psycho. Can you tell me whether this is a zoom or a push? And how do I know? The point is, it's very difficult to tell why we're on a solid colored background. There's no way to appreciate depth changes. If you look carefully over here, you'll see a black dot. You see that? And you see how there's no change in distance during the move, which, given the focus performance and given the fact that that is not changing in space, I'm pretty sure that it's a zoom. Would make sense. Why do I bother showing this? Well, if you're ever shooting a character against a blue sky or a black stadium background, don't kill yourself pushing in on them and killing your crew doing these big moves. They're very hard to appreciate. Unless you go through extreme lens changes, you can see the distortion change. But if you're going from, let's say, a 50 to 100 or a 20 to 50, you'll have a hard time noticing the move. And we'll come back to this tonight when we talk about Nike, how I made an effort to put lights within the stadium so you could appreciate the camera's movement. So always make sure that you understand that when you move the camera through space, it's critical to appreciate the depth. And the way you're going to appreciate the depth is by having elements in your frame, because the foreground will always move faster than the middle ground or background. And that's how your audience can appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. If you're pushing in on someone against a solid backdrop, you're almost wasting your time. Make sense? Okay. Let's look, in this case, of course, to a pull. This is when you pull the camera back or you back up. This is from Brazil again. This poor woman has just had her husband kidnapped by mistake due to a clerical error.
Bloody typical. I've gone back to metric without telling her.
Mrs. Buttle, are you all right?
We pull away. Do you see how our world is literally and figuratively crashing down upon her? Okay, it's a great way to show the entire environment crashing down on someone. You do a quick pull back. Of course, she faints. There is all she has left of her husband. And we now cut to the Department of Records. We're pulling away again, this time for a very different purpose. Not an emotional one, but to move through space. So here we are, moving through space. Notice all the crossing in front of the camera, the very lively extras to really create movement and depth. The purpose of this is to show you how easy it is to get lost within this huge machine. You understand how one human being is just a number and a piece of paper in the Department of Records. Again, notice all the crossing, exact same set. And notice right here, we're going to cue the stairway. For what purpose? Just to wipe in front of the camera and to add richness, to add what we call eye candy. So one serious concept we're going to talk about today is called eye candy. Generally speaking, eye candy is motion blur, or foreground elements that wipe past the lens to make your 2D environment feel three-dimensional. You hear a lot of directors complaining today saying 3D. We've been shooting 3D this whole time, just on a 2D environment. We've been creating rich canvases due to things like this, wiping the camera. And there's poor old Mr. Kurtzman here, who's going to do everything he can in his power to hide his mistake and shuffle it onto someone else as you do. Here's a quick example of a zoom and a push combined. The idea here is neither one of them is fast enough, but combined together with a crazy focus pull, you can do fun little things like this. Isn't that pretty? All right, here's the push in, which we've discussed a few times by now, but here's a good example of it, this time from Saving Private Ryan. Spielberg is famous for pushing in on someone and tilting up, usually faster than this. But as you watch this shot, I want you to ask yourself, how does this make you feel? What's happened here is Tom Hanks has just lost one of his soldiers. He ordered an attack on this position that was voluntary. And of course, he's lost a young soldier. And he's their leader, of course, but he's going to hide in this hole for a second and react to it. This humanizes him, of course. But what would you do if you were at this scene yourself? You would look away, right? We're not looking away here. Not only are we not looking away, we're going closer and closer and closer to him. How does that make you feel? It gives you no choice but to build that emotion within yourself. That's the purpose of this move. You'll notice at a certain point here, we're going to cut Ask yourself why Spielberg cuts. It's got two purposes that I can think of. You've obviously gotten uncomfortably close here. Got a great performance in front of us. There's the cut. Why did he cut? Anyone? Was it to cover up a mistake? I don't think so. What's he doing?
Give you a break.
Gives the audience a little bit of a release, but he's pulling himself together. So the cut is meant to signify that he shifts himself. He's a leader. When you lead men, you don't want to be crying in front of them because you're going to be asking them to run out in the battle and risk their lives for you. You want to make sure that they feel confidence in you. He pulls himself together. Also, think about what it does for an actor. You say, okay, I want you to break down emotionally in front of the camera, in front of all this crew, and I'm going to do a 20-second push towards you, and at 21 seconds, I want you to pull yourself together. That's a bit rich. That's a bit much. Whereas if you tell them, I'm going to do a 20-second move, and whenever it feels comfortable, I'll yell cut. Just go through whatever you need to, whatever arc you need to, and then we'll come back, and we'll do a second cut where you go from that state to pulling yourself together. It also sets up your actor for success. One of the things we'll talk about today is setting yourself up as well as your crew up, not for failure, but for success. Right? If you start off on this camera on a 400 millimeter at f2 and you ask it to push at full speed while someone walks towards it, you're setting yourself up for failure unless you have an incredible focus puller and team. Fair enough? Whereas if you do the same move on a 20 at half speed, more likely to succeed. Simple stuff. Okay, here's a quick little example of tilting up from Paul Thomas Anderson. How do you feel already when you see this scene? You feel anything inside? Don't you want to push that camera up, tilt it up a little bit already? Now you see him looking up, makes it even more frustrating. And look at how slowly it's moving. Anderson is messing with you. He's trying to build tension. But from the start of that first shot, a simple choice to slowly tilt up and start tilted down to create that tension is done just by the way the subject is framed and by the camera's movement. So keep that in mind. Here is Kubrick in The Shining. First of all, you'll notice that we're going to slide from left to right, and with the use of the shelf, effectively split the scene up into two different mini scenes, just by the camera's move from left to right. So right there, we've split the scene up into two. And now we zoom in. What you'll find if you go back and watch The Shining is Kubrick uses a zoom to signify a supernatural connection. Only time he uses a zoom, he used it a number of times, but they have their little connection going. He's doing what we call using a device. When he zooms in, it's meant to signify a supernatural relationship or some connection, the entirety of the film. So you can see as directors how you can make certain choices at the start of your piece, your short, your film, your webisode, and say, these are my rules. Every time I zoom in, it signifies this. Whereas if we have to move forward on other things, I'll push in. Makes sense? Little things, but they do add up. Here's the exact same move from Spielberg at E.T. You'll notice it has a very different effect because you can appreciate the depth moving in on him on this next cut, next shot. First time he sees E.T. You see how the entire environment moves as we push in, how we pick up different flares in the lens, which is more eye candy, keeps it more alive, more Hollywood. The strings don't hurt. And of course, notice how you finish on a frozen shot. Just as Elliot is completely scared to death, scared stiff, so is the camera. So you'll see how that parlays. Here's a silly use of a push that I just can't resist.
You don't like my policies, you can just come on down here and smooch my big old white butt. Pucker up, Buttercup.
Ferris Bueller's online too.
So definitely a little bit over the top, but still gets the effect that you want.
How you doing? Listen, I'm sorry to disturb you at work, but I'm not feeling very well today, and I was wondering if it might be possible for my sister to bring home any assignments for my classes that I might need. Have a nice day.
Poor guy. Almost like him. You definitely want to like him, but you can't. A dolly. we use this term all the time. That's a dolly. It's an imprecise term. So it's perfectly okay to say dolly right or dolly left. Everyone knows what you're meaning. Same way with travel, number of ways of putting it. I was just trying to suggest that you try to use slide, left or right. It's extremely precise. You only slide left or right. You only boom up or down. You only push or pull, pan or tilt, or roll. We'll get to that in a second. As you watch this scene, though, Kubrick is using this move for another purpose. Sliding here through the wall. What's the purpose? Change of worlds. On the left is reality. He's in an abandoned. Who here has not seen The Shining? I know there's a few more of you. But on the left, and if you look real carefully, that's Kubrick's daughter over here. Just a weird little film anecdote. But on the left is the real world. That's quiet. He's in an abandoned hotel for the winter. And you hear music, which would signal you that something is going on. On the right is Jack Nicholson's character's dementia and craziness. So we're literally sliding into his dementia. Okay? So Kubrick is not just moving through space. He's actually moving through different types of mental states within a move. Yeah?
Wouldn't right to left been better?
Well, again, it's subtle and maybe, but there's obviously a physical space you have to deal with in reality. It's not a set that they built. This is a real hotel. And I guess you could have done it, but again, this is subtle stuff. Maybe it's supposed to not feel uncomfortable. I don't know, right? So don't. These are all rules, and they are meant to be broken. But at least you should learn them first and then break them. Make sense? If this is a kind of tongue-in-cheek here, but a lot of documentary people look at this workshop and say, this is all fine and good, but I can't have my actors move around. And I say, well, actually, yes, you can. They're not your actors. They're real people. But just as you can tell the actors to move from left to right, you can use your hips and make that happen yourself. All right? And I can start just like Spielberg starts on a detail and pulls back. I can start on your face and reveal these two characters, and I've now connected you in a documentary. Or I can look at people, and what I did for 20 years as a photojournalist is I anticipated. I looked at people's patterns and said, well, most people walk from right to left here, and I found a nice frame in a village or something, and I waited for something to come together. If you look at Bresson's work, you'd see a stairwell, and he would shoot there for hours until that one bike came in, and he had his perfect frame. You wait. But a documentary videographer or a wedding photographer can use, or videographer can use all these exact moves, but reverse engineer them. Okay? So if someone, God forbid, starts to cry in your documentary, you can just stay static. And I don't expect you to have a dolly, but last I checked, you still have hips and a back, which means you can do this with your hips. Looks exactly like a dolly, it's the same thing. Or you can pull back, or lean back, or pan off. Exact same thing. All these principles definitely do apply. In the same way that if you don't have a fancy dolly on your short film, use the same principles to, instead of pushing in or pulling out, have your actors walk away from your camera. So that's kind of the tongue-in-cheek thing here, just an excuse to show you Monty Python, but they're effectively doing the exact same thing at the beginning of the shot. They're starting tight, they're zooming out, and letting the actors walk away from the camera. A lot faster and cheaper than building rails or tracks for the dolly.